as the opening card softly fades into darkness. Allow your mind to drift away from the weight of the day and rest upon the silent, velvet expanse of the outer solar system. Far beyond the warm glow of our inner world, where the sunlight thins into a calm and pale amber beam, the great ringed worlds glide through the quiet void of space. There is a tranquil grace in these distant realms, where motion unfolds not in sudden moments, but in vast, measured epochs that whisper of timeless peace. Here, suspended against the deep black of the cosmos, Saturn floats like a softly glowing orb of gold and cream, wrapped in its famous system of radiant, glowing halos. For centuries, astronomers gazing through early telescopes imagined these luminous bands as solid ribbons of polished stone, or an unbroken arc of crystal, rigid structures holding their shape against the silent pull of gravity. Yet, as our vision broadened and our mathematical understanding deepened, a far more delicate and soothing reality began to reveal itself, one where rigidity gives way to a fluid, gentle dance of countlessly tiny worlds, moving together in perfect harmony. It was through quiet contemplation and rigorous analysis that the true nature of these majestic structures came to light. In 1859, Scottish physicist James Clerk Maxwell mathematically proved that Saturn's rings were neither solid sheets nor continuous liquids, but an endless veil of unattached water ice fragments drifting past one another at relative speeds of just millimeters per second, rather than a single massive wheel of ice spinning through the dark. The rings are a vast tapestry woven from trillions of independent travelers, ranging from tiny, sparkling grains of frost to boulder-sized icebergs smoothed by time. As they circle the giant planet in near-perfect circular orbits, their paths are so closely aligned and so gently attuned to one another that adjacent particles barely move relative to their neighbors. If you were to float alongside them in the quiet gloom, you would not see a rushing torrent or a chaotic swirl of debris, but rather a serene, glittering sea of pale blue and translucent white, where ice spheres drift beside each other with the gentle stillness of falling snow on a windless night. This soft, rhythmic drift creates an atmosphere of profound and soothing stillness across millions of kilometers of quiet space. Though the rings span immense distances across the void, their vertical thickness is remarkably delicate, often measuring no more than a few meters from top to bottom. Within this paper-thin sheet of frozen mist, subtle gravitational nudges from small moonlets embedded within the ice guide the particles, drawing them into delicate ripples and faint, elegant spiral waves that wash silently across the rings over centuries. Each collision between these icy fragments is not a harsh impact, but a slow, cushioning nudge, a gentle touch that exchanges momentum as softly as autumn leaves floating down upon a calm pond. As we begin our quiet journey into the slow mechanics of these majestic planetary rings, let your thoughts align with their effortless rhythm, breathing slowly as we prepare to explore the quiet forces hidden shepherd moons, and gentle laws of physics that sustain this eternal, shimmering veil of ancient ice across the endless dark. Long before humanity understood the true nature of the ringed giant, early observers looked into the night sky with quiet wonder, seeking to decipher the faint signals drifting across the void of space. When Galileo Galilei peered at Saturn through his 20-power wooden telescope in July 1610, he mistook the subtle ring geometry for twin companion spheres, only to watch them slowly vanish 2 years later in 1612, as Saturn's 29.5-year orbital journey turned the paper-thin disk edge-on to Earth. It was a moment of profound confusion for the early astronomer. Yet, it revealed something wonderfully serene about the grand architecture of our solar system. The mysterious rings had not vanished at all, but had merely aligned their delicate edge directly with our line of sight, hiding their vast breadth behind a profile so imperceptibly thin that even the finest instruments of the 17th century could no longer resolve them against the dark backdrop of space. Across the centuries that followed, skywatchers slowly learned to appreciate this rhythmic celestial dance, knowing that every few decades the magnificent structure would turn itself nearly invisible, offering a quiet reminder of how much lies hidden within the slow, predictable geometry of planetary motion. As centuries turned and technological vision expanded, astronomers sought ever gentler methods to measure the vast, silent structures suspended around distant planets. In November 1973, radar signals transmitted by the 305-meter dish at Puerto Rico's Arecibo Observatory reflected off Saturn's rings, revealing that despite extending across 280,000 kilometers of space, the main disk of ice fragments is less than 10 meters thick. This remarkable measurement transformed our understanding of planetary dynamics, painting a picture of a ring system that is astonishingly wide yet finer than a gentle whisper. The returning radio echoes carried a quiet story of extraordinary balance, showing how countless ice particles align themselves into a single, razor-thin plane that remains calm and stable over immense spans of time. Imagine a vast sheet of gleaming frozen fragments stretching far enough to bridge the expanse between distant worlds, yet held in an equilibrium so delicate that its vertical depth would barely reach the ceiling of a single quiet room. These radio waves traveled for billions of kilometers through the cold stillness of the cosmos, bouncing softly off millions of icy fragments before bringing their subtle message back to the tranquil, forest-covered hills of Earth. To contemplate this planetary disk is to enter a world of peaceful stillness, where vast cosmic dimensions exist alongside infinite, quiet grace. Within this paper-thin halo, millions of icy fragments float in effortless unison, moving along orderly paths shaped by gravity's unending whisper. Each individual particle, whether as small as a grain of sand or as large as a quiet mountain boulder, follows its own unhurried trajectory without disturbance, friction, or noise. From afar, the disk appears as a seamless, luminous ribbon of moonlight resting softly against the shadow of the giant world. Yet up close, it is an ethereal tapestry woven from light, shadow, and timeless orbital motion. As night settles around you and the mind grows resting and calm, let your thoughts drift upon this vast sheet of ice, floating silently through the deep dark, governed by celestial laws that are forever gentle, constant, and beautifully serene. Night after night, across the quiet landscape of 17th century Europe, early astronomers peered through simple tubes of iron and glass, attempting to discern the true nature of Saturn's quiet, golden glow. To the eyes of those early observers, the distant world appeared curious and misshapen, flanked by strange companions or pale, triple-lobed ears that seemed to vanish and reappear over the passing years. This visual mystery lingered in the dark, inviting patient minds to build sharper optics and wait for the midnight air to steady, listening to the faint whisper of wind through the trees while tracking the slow progress of the heavens. In those silent hours before dawn, when the stillness of the countryside allowed the stars to shine without tremor, observers sought to untangle what nature had placed so far beyond human reach. The light of Saturn traveled over 1 billion kilometers through the cold void, carrying with it a delicate message wrapped in shadows and subtle geometry. It waited patiently in the velvet dark for someone to construct an instrument capable of bringing its true outline into clear, unmistakable focus, transforming an ancient riddle into a revelation of cosmic harmony. That clarity arrived through the painstaking art of lens grinding and the quiet persistence of a dedicated Dutch natural philosopher. In 1655, Dutch astronomer Christian Huygens used a 57-foot refracting telescope of his own design to solve Saturn's visual riddle, publishing Systema Saturnium 4 years later to explain that the planet was encircled by a thin, flat ring inclined at 28 degrees that nowhere touched its surface. This realization reshaped how humanity envisioned the architecture of the solar system, replacing ambiguous, tumbling shapes with an image of breathtaking serenity. Huygens had crafted his massive instrument with meticulous care, grinding long focal length lenses by candlelight to reduce chromatic distortions and bring crispness to the distant planetary disk. Through this elongated wooden cylinder, suspended from tall masts in the cool night air, the mysterious handles resolved into a continuous, graceful ribbon of reflected sunlight. It sat balanced in empty space, suspended in perfect equilibrium by the unseen pull of gravity, hovering as a seamless, glowing band around the pale golden sphere. As the years drifted quietly onward, astronomers began to understand why Saturn had presented such a puzzling face to earlier observers. Because the ring system is tilted relative to its path around the sun, Earth's view of this celestial halo changes slowly over the course of Saturn's long 29-year journey. At times, the ring opens wide, revealing its broad, luminous surface in full splendor to attentive stargazers below, shining like a tranquil disk of silver dust. At other times, as the planet reaches specific points in its orbit, the ring turns directly edge-on toward Earth, becoming so extraordinarily thin that it seems to dissolve entirely into the dark background of space. This slow, predictable cycle of appearance and disappearance resembles a cosmic breath, taking nearly 3 decades to complete a single inhalation and exhalation of light. Resting in the quiet dark, one can imagine the vast distance between the inner boundary of that icy belt and the cloud tops of the giant world beneath it. A serene gulf of empty space where silent gravitational forces maintain a perpetual, peaceful balance. To look upon Saturn from a great distance is to witness a quiet illusion of stillness, as though the planet were encircled by a solid, polished ribbon suspended motionless in the dark void. For centuries, early skywatchers saw only a continuous veil of light wrapped around the amber globe, a smooth geometry glowing faintly against the quiet background of space. Yet beneath this tranquil surface lies a vast ensemble of trillions of individual ice particles, each following its own slow, patient orbit around the distant world. In the silent expanse of the outer solar system, these tiny fragments move together in gentle harmony, driven by the invisible pull of gravity that subtle forces weave into intricate patterns over vast stretches of cosmic time. As sunlight softly reflects off these drifting grains, subtle rhythms emerge within the apparent calm, revealing that the great rings are not uniform sheets of dust, but dynamic regions shaped by steady, ancient interactions. Looking closely through the dark stillness of night, one begins to see that what appears whole and unbroken is actually sculpted by delicate gravitational whispers, carving out quiet paths and gentle boundaries across the broad fields of glittering ice. This quiet structure began to yield its secrets in the peaceful night sky of 1675, when Italian-French astronomer Giovanni Domenico Cassini used a 35-foot telescope at the Paris Observatory to discover a 4,800-kilometer gap in Saturn's disk, cleared over eons by the moon Mimas, whose gravity gently nudges icy particles out of orbit every time they complete 2 loops to its one. Observing the planet through his long refractor tube beneath the quiet Parisian stars, Cassini realized that the ring was not a single continuous veil of light, but was split into 2 concentric bands of icy material. The gap he saw, appearing as a thin, dark line floating in space, was the result of a steady, cosmic dance played out across millions of years. Each subtle gravitational pull from Mimas acts like a soft, repeating pulse, slowly deflecting the path of any particle attempting to circle within that specific distance from Saturn. Over vast ages, these tiny cumulative nudges organized the ring into distinct belts, leaving a serene, wide channel where almost no particles remain. The mechanism of orbital resonance operates like a slow, eternal pendulum marking time in the silent cosmos, where tiny, repeated forces accumulate into magnificent, peaceful structures. Because gravity acts with such soft, unwavering persistence, the particles trapped within this resonance zone with Mimas are slowly coaxed outward or inward, leaving their former paths virtually vacant of drifting ice. This clearing process is not a sudden or sweeping motion, but a calm, gradual sorting of tiny crystals moving under the steady, predictable laws of celestial mechanics. As the distant moon continues its endless journey around Saturn, its gravitational presence maintains this quiet boundary, keeping the wide division clear and distinct against the surrounding brightness of the outer ring. Floating in the cold stillness of deep space, the ring system continues its slow ballet, perfectly balanced between motion and rest, reminding us of the subtle order that gently governs the universe during the quiet, restful hours of the night. Out in the silent deep of the outer solar system, distance turns motion into something that feels almost motionless. Giant gas planets spin softly in the blue-dark vacuum, surrounded by wide, tranquil fields of dust, ice, and ancient moonlight. For uncounted eons, small icy bodies have wandered through these shadowy precincts, drawn along unseen paths carved by the quiet weight of their parent worlds. As a moon slowly draws closer to its planet over millions of years, it experiences a subtle shift in the architecture of forces holding it together. The side of the moon facing the giant feels a slightly stronger gravitational pull than the side turned away toward open space. This gentle difference in pull creates a stretching effect, a delicate planetary tide that whispers against the moon's internal cohesion. For smaller, firmer worlds far out in space, their own modest self-gravity is enough to keep every fragment of frozen water and stone resting comfortably against their surface. But as the centuries unfold in silent succession and the orbital radius gradually shrinks, there comes a quiet threshold where the balance of these forces shifts forever, transforming a solitary sphere into a vast, luminous halo of floating dust. It was in the middle of the 19th century that this unseen boundary was first given a clear mathematical voice. In 1848, French astronomer Edouard Roche mathematically derived the orbital boundary now called the Roche limit, where a planet's tidal gravity overcomes the faint self-gravity of an approaching icy moon, gently teasing its material apart into a flat, eternal ring. Roche's elegant calculations showed that this quiet transition does not require a collision or a sudden impact from an external body. Instead, it is an inevitable consequence of distance, mass, and density working together in silent geometry. When an icy satellite drifts inward past this mathematical perimeter. Its own internal gravity can no longer counteract the relentless stretching force of the planet's immense gravitational field. The bonds of ice and rock loosen without sound or flash, allowing individual particles to slip free from one another and find their own independent, peaceful orbits around the central world. What was once a solid, spherical moon gradually relaxes into a calm stream of quiet debris, spreading out along the exact path of its original journey. Over vast stretches of time, these uncounted trillions of ice crystals drift past each other in smooth, parallel paths, forming a sheer sheet that catches the distant sunlight like fine lace floating in the dark. Each tiny speck of ice remains bound to the planet in an endless, restful dance, floating along the edge of space where gravity once pulled it apart and now holds it together in gentle balance. There is a profound stillness in this process, a reminder that even the dissolution of a moon is a slow, orderly transformation governed by fundamental laws of motion. As night folds over the giant world, the ring continues its silent revolution, shimmering softly in the dark. In the cool quiet of the cosmos, the Roche limit stands as a soft, permanent threshold, marking the exact place where moons give way to rings, and where solid matter dissolves into an unending stream of quiet, revolving light. Far within Saturn's vast gravitational embrace lies the D-ring, a ghostly and translucent veil of icy particles drifting quietly just above the upper atmosphere of the gas giant. For generations of astronomers watching through earthbound telescopes, this faint innermost ring remained entirely unseen, hidden by the brilliant glare of its larger, more luminous neighbors. Even when early robotic spacecraft captured its shadowy silhouette in close flybys, it appeared to be little more than a featureless haze, completely smooth and undisturbed against the deep velvet black of surrounding space. Yet in 1995, Planetary scientists analyzing Hubble Space Telescope images discovered that Saturn's translucent D-ring contains a vertical ripple pattern like folded silk, created when a comet dust cloud passage in 1983 gently tilted the ring plane by just a few meters, causing it to wind into a slow, tight spiral across decades. As millions of individual ice grains continue their calm, silent orbits at slightly differing speeds, this subtle corrugated wave steadily winds itself tighter, preserving the memory of that ancient, gentle encounter with extraordinary physical precision. The ring acts like a slow cosmic clock, carrying the peaceful, unhurried rhythm of time written upon its fragile, shimmering surface. As each decade passes, the spiral winds finer still, a silent testament to how even the briefest cosmic brush can shape the structure of a ring for generations. Moving outward beyond the subtle folds of the D-ring, one encounters the broad and equally delicate sea ring. Another translucent band woven from dark, icy debris and fine cosmic dust. Here, the ring material is sensitive not only to external visitors like passing comets, but also to mysterious, hidden forces emanating from deep within Saturn itself, below the golden cloud bands, thousands of kilometers beneath the swirling, storm-swept atmosphere. The planet's immense interior is constantly in motion, rather than existing as a rigid or motionless sphere of gas and fluid. The planet continuously pulses with subtle kinetic energy, expanding and contracting in complex rhythmic oscillations. The entire planet hums with low, resonant frequencies, vibrating softly like a giant body, suspended in the silent void of space. These microscopic internal movements generate faint, periodic fluctuations in Saturn's gravitational pull, which reach out across thousands of kilometers of empty space to touch the surrounding ring system with gentle, invisible hands. This subtle gravitational coupling bridges the immense gulf between the planet's hidden core and the icy expanse above. In 2013, Planetary scientists analyzing Cassini radio occultation data discovered that Saturn's deep interior pulses like a giant bell, sending faint acoustic vibrations into the translucent sea ring that creates slow, spiral-bending waves, acting as a natural planetary seismograph. As these low-frequency acoustic modes ripple outward through the ring, they lift and lower the icy particles in systematic, repeating patterns, creating long, sweeping spiral structures that mirror the hidden internal activity of the planet far below. Every subtle resonance within Saturn's fluid interior leaves a quiet, lasting mark upon the sea ring, translating unseen seismic tremors into visible, floating geometric waves. Through this delicate physical harmony, the ring becomes a serene recording instrument, listening continuously to the deep, soundless music of the giant world it encircles, drifting peacefully through the endless, calming darkness of the outer solar system. It is a quiet reminder that even in the vast cold of space, everything is softly connected through unseen rhythms of gravity and time. Far beneath the brilliant, reflective bands of Saturn's main ring system lies the gentle obscurity of the sea ring. Soft and translucent, this faint sheet of ancient water ice resembles a cosmic whisper stretched across the dark velvet of space. Its ice particles, fine as mist, drift in quiet solitude, casting barely a shadow upon the pale golden cloud tops far below, as sunlight filtered through the delicate veil illuminates the inner system. It reveals subtle structures hidden within the darkness, where silent forces guide every tiny speck of dust along unhurried paths. Here, far from the dramatic collisions of the outer rings, the realm is governed by smooth, patient dynamics that play out across decades. The expanse feels boundless and still, inviting the mind to slow down alongside the subtle currents of Saturn's shadow, where tiny streams of material trace out elegant loops in peaceful equilibrium. Nested within Saturn's translucent sea ring, the 100-kilometer-wide Titan Ringlet maintains a slightly elliptical shape that precesses silently around the planet once every 4.9 years, locked in a delicate gravitational dance with distant Titan's orbital motion. Though separated by immense distances, the massive moon Titan reaches across the void with its quiet gravitational pull, nudging the delicate ringlet in precise, rhythmic intervals. Rather than holding a perfectly circular trace, the ringlet breathes gently, stretching outwards into a faint ellipse, whose long axis turns slowly in space like the hour hand of a cosmic clock. Each particle within this narrow band follows its prescribed pathway with steady grace, responding effortlessly to the distant cadence set by Titan. The alignment shifts so gradually that to human eyes, the motion would be entirely imperceptible from one night to the next. Nearly 5 terrestrial years pass on Earth, while this single, elegant feature completes one full, silent turn around Saturn's equator, tracing a quiet arc through the darkness of space. This gentle resonance illustrates how even the vastest planetary structures remain intimately connected to one another through invisible, unbreakable threads of gravity. As the Titan ringlet completes its silent rotation around Saturn, it does so without collision or friction, moving smoothly through the thin expanse of space. The ringlet's subtle eccentricity serves as a tender reminder of the enduring harmony present throughout the cosmos, where vast distances do not separate, but rather bind objects together in slow, perpetual balance. The light from distant stars glints off the icy dust of the ringlet as it glides through shadow, following a pathway sculpted before human memory began. Floating softly in the quiet expanse of the giant planet's domain, the ringlet continues its slow precession, a peaceful testament to the steady, undisturbed rhythms that govern the universe, while all below sinks into deep, restorative sleep. To contemplate this slow orbital movement is to enter a peaceful realm where urgency dissolves entirely. There is no haste in the motion of the ice particles, nor in the silent gravitational pull that shapes them across the void. Surrounded by the cold stillness of space, the sea ring remains a sanctuary of rest, where time is measured not by seconds, but by the quiet turning of distant rings. In this unending calm, the mind can lay down its burdens, carried along by the eternal clockwork of the cosmos. Imagine standing at a quiet, solitary vantage point high above Saturn's equator, where the golden illumination of the sun falls softly across millions of kilometers of glittering ice. The great ring system expands below in unbroken tranquility, appearing from a distance like a polished sheet of pale pearl drifting through the silent dark. Up close, however, this vast celestial structure reveals itself as a dynamic, deeply peaceful sea composed of countless billions of individual icy particles, small fragments, no larger than pebbles or dust, float alongside massive icy boulders, each following its own precise path around the pale gas giant. There is no turbulence here, only a slow and graceful orbital choreography that has endured for millions of years. As the faint sunlight reflects from millions of frozen surfaces, it casts a subtle, ambient glow across the deep void, filling the surrounding space with a profound sense of stillness. Every particle glides along its orbital track with quiet discipline, held in place by the gentle, invisible hand of gravity, maintaining a delicate balance within this vast cosmic tapestry. In this silent realm, time unfolds at a vastly different pace, measured not in ticks of a clock, but in the imperceptible alignment of icy spheres traveling across millions of miles within the dense and crowded expanse of Saturn's main ring structure. Subtle gravitational forces perform an exquisite, deliberate work over unimaginable timescales. Within Saturn's dense B ring, distant moons, like mimes, gently nudge icy grains into whispering spiral density waves that migrate inward at less than 1 kilometer per year, slowly sculpting patterns across thousands of kilometers. These spiral density waves ripple outward and inward like microscopic crests on a vast, frozen ocean, compressing and expanding the spacing between millions of tiny ice particles without ever disrupting their delicate harmony. The moon Mimas, though orbiting millions of kilometers away beyond the main rings, exerts its faint gravitational pull at regular intervals, synchronizing with the motion of the ring particles in a peaceful orbital resonance. Each subtle tug is infinitesimally small on its own, barely a breath against the mass of the ring. Yet, over centuries of unhurried repetition, these gentle forces gather strength. The resulting waves travel through the ring sheet like soft music drifting across a quiet room, carving delicate ribbons and ridges across the pale ice, arranging trillions of floating fragments into long, intricate patterns that stretch toward the horizon. Watching these slow, cosmic ripples move across the rings offers a calming reminder of the deep, patient rhythms that govern the cosmos. Nothing here moves in haste. Every ripple and gap takes centuries to form and millennia to settle into equilibrium. The icy grains themselves continue their eternal journey around Saturn, bathing in the quiet blue shadow of the planet's nighttime hemisphere before emerging back into the warm, pale sunlight. The soft interaction between moon and ring creates a landscape of quiet majesty, where order continuously emerges from simple physics, operating across unimaginable distances. As the spiral density waves softly journey inward, year after year, century after century, they whisper of an ancient, undisturbed harmony that has persisted in the quiet outer solar system since long before human eyes looked up to the stars. And so the rings remain, suspended in silent, unending grace, continuing their gentle, slow movement through the calm dark. high above the shadowed expanse of Saturn. The main rings exist in a state of tranquil, perpetual motion, where time seems to expand into an unhurried drift. Far from being rigid solid disks, these vast celestial ribbons are composed of countless icy particles ranging from microscopic specks to immense, snow-dusted boulders in the quiet microgravity of Saturn's main rings. Icy boulders collide at speeds slower than a garden snail, roughly a few millimeters per minute, softly coalescing into temporary, drifting structures called self-gravity wakes before gently separating under faint tidal forces. This delicate ballet repeats continuously in a silence deeper than any earthly night, where every gentle touch is devoid of impact or violence, feeling more like a slow, deliberate embrace than a collision. As these temporary clusters form and dissolve, they give the rings a soft, breathing texture, constantly reweaving themselves across hundreds of thousands of kilometers without ever disturbing the serene stillness of the cosmic backdrop. Beyond the quiet meeting of larger icy bodies, the rings harbor even subtle, ghostly phenomena that reveal themselves only under careful human observation. In November 1980, Voyager 1 captured images of faint, radial shadow-like features called spokes drifting across Saturn's B ring, created when solar ultraviolet light electrostatically levitates tiny dust grains a few meters above the icy ring plane to align with the planet's rotating magnetic field. These shadowy streaks move across the broad B ring like quiet fingers of mist, appearing to defy the simple gravitational orbits of the larger ice fragments around them. The tiny dust grains respond to the imperceptible push of electric charges and magnetic fields, floating effortlessly just above the main layer like frost, rising gently off a frozen lake on a windless morning. It is a slow, elegant interplay between light, magnetism, and matter, adding another layer of quiet wonder to the vast cosmic tapestry. As Saturn rotates upon its distant axis, these delicate spokes slowly form, sweep across the ring plane in harmony with the planet's invisible magnetosphere, and eventually dissolve back into the calm sea of icy grains without leaving a single trace behind. The persistence of these structures, both the drifting wakes of ice and the floating veils of charged dust, reveals a cosmic world governed not by chaotic collisions, but by a patient, gentle balance of forces. Every microscopic grain and multimeter boulder moves within an intricate hierarchy of physical laws, creating patterns that endure across millions of years, while shifting continuously from moment to moment. Watching these slow mechanics unfolds a profound sense of calm, reminding us that planetary processes often operate on scales of movement almost imperceptible to human senses. The endless cycle of gentle contact, subtle separation, and floating dust creates a rhythmic, timeless atmosphere across the vast ring system. Millions of ice fragments glide along their orbital tracks in perfect harmony, carried by the subtle balance of gravity and light through the velvety dark of space. Each particle follows its own quiet path, bound to its neighbors by invisible forces that hold the structure together with remarkable softness. In this serene expanse, where movement is measured in fractions of a millimeter, and shadows drift silently across millions of miles, the universe moves with an enduring, peaceful rhythm that invites deep rest and untroubled quiet. Far out near the icy margin of Saturn's ring system, where distant sunlight fades into a cool and delicate luminescence, the outer A ring glides through the quiet dark of interplanetary space. To a distant observer, this expansive sheet of frozen dust appears motionless and serene, a seamless ribbon of pale amber wrapping smoothly around the gas giant's equator. Yet, within its delicate breadth, trillions of tiny water ice particles journey continuously around their parent world, each following its own gentle Keplerian orbit. They move together with quiet grace, fine grains of frost and smooth icy pebbles drifting past one another in an endless, rhythmic promenade. There is no wind here, nor any sound in the deep void, only the steady and unhurried passage of time as the ring material traces its circular path through the faint shadows cast by the planet below. Over countless centuries, this vast field of orbiting ice has maintained its subtle equilibrium, turning smoothly in space like a giant, silent celestial clockwork, resting peacefully in the dark void. Deep within this tranquil expanse of the outer A ring, small icy bodies remain tucked away out of view, acting as quiet architects embedded within the drift of frost. Within Saturn's outer A ring, hidden kilometer-wide moonlets clear out quiet, S-shaped gaps in the surrounding ice known as propellers, including a persistent feature named Earhart that has drifted peacefully along its orbital path since its discovery in 2004. These miniature moons, far too diminutive to be resolved directly, announce their presence only through the soft and elegant patterns they carve into the surrounding ring dust. As the ring particles approach a moonlet, its gentle gravitational field slightly alters their speeds, pulling some inward and pushing others outward to create twin, wing-like clearings in the sheet of ice. Named in honor of pioneering aviators, these propeller-shaped disturbances float like faint, elongated shadows along the ring's orbital lanes, retaining their distinctive forms as millions of icy particles continuously enter and depart their subtle domains. Among these rare and persistent features, Earhart remains a comforting focal point for observing the subtle dynamics of the ring system over time. Tracking Earhart across years of observation reveals how the tiny embedded moonlet does not wander randomly, but rather drifts with a slow, swaying cadence along its orbit, gently nudging its way through the surrounding sea of ice. The feature sways back and forth relative to its expected position, responding softly to the collective gravitational pulls of neighboring density waves and nearby resonant forces. This quiet interaction between moonlet and ring particle mirrors in miniature the grand dynamics that shaped entire planetary systems during their earliest beginnings. As the propellers continue their silent, eternal orbit, the individual ice particles that make up Earhart's clearing are constantly renewed, coming and going like gentle waves along a silent shore, while the structure itself remains intact decade after decade. In this vast and tranquil expanse, time moves slowly, marked only by the graceful rotation of the ring and the patient, swaying dance of its hidden moonlets, floating serenely in the cool, timeless dark of space, offering a quiet sanctuary of eternal order. There's a quiet beauty in the way astronomical discovery often unfolds long after a spacecraft has completed its journey through the stars. When Voyager 2 swept past Saturn, its cameras captured thousands of images, recording the icy rings in exquisite detail before speeding onward into deep space. These photographs were cataloged and preserved in digital archives, quietly awaiting a time when patient analysis might examine them once more. Among the features that intrigued researchers was a prominent dark channel carved through the outer section of Saturn's broad ring, known as the Encke Gap. For years, scientists theorized that such a clear lane could only remain free of ring material if a small embedded moon was actively clearing the path, gently pushing icy particles away with its faint gravitational influence as it traveled around the planet. The confirmation of this subtle mechanism arrived through patient archival research rather than a new observation. In 1990, astronomer Mark Showalter analyzed decade-old Voyager 2 images to discover the 28-kilometer moon pan nesting inside Saturn's 325-kilometer-wide Encke Gap, where its faint gravity generates smooth, undulating wave patterns along the icy gap margins every 13.8 hours. The tiny shepherd moon had eluded notice for years due to its modest size and the brightness of the surrounding ring fields. But its presence was revealed by the very patterns it left behind in the surrounding ice. Like a vessel gliding slowly across a calm lake, Pan leaves a delicate wake as it travels along its track, nudging the inner and outer borders of the gap into gentle, rhythmic crests that extend for thousands of kilometers along the ring's perimeter. These wave structures, often called edge waves, are produced because the icy particles on the inner side of the gap orbit slightly faster than Pan, while those on the outer side move slightly slower. As Pan passes by the inner edge, its gravitational pull accelerates nearby particles, drawing them into a series of soft, repeating scalloped shapes. Conversely, along the outer edge, Pan's gravity decelerates the ring material, creating a complementary set of undulating ripples that slowly drift relative to the moon's position. Because the physics governing orbital motion is so precise and unchanging. These gravitational interactions occur with perfect regularity, maintaining the pristine boundary of the gap, while crafting an ever-moving, silent sculpture out of microscopic particles of water ice. To visualize Pan within the Encke Gap is to appreciate the delicate balance that defines the architecture of planetary rings. In this distant environment, gravity acts not as a violent force, but as a subtle brush, constantly shaping and smoothing the drifting ice. The 13.8-hour cadence of Pan's orbit rhythmically refreshes these gentle waves, ensuring that the gap remains open while filling its borders with endless, slow-moving ripples. There is no turbulence here, only a peaceful, continuous dance executed in total silence across the cold void of space. As the icy particles rise and fall in their gentle orbital choreography, they reflect the steady mechanics of a system governed by quiet order, offering a comforting reminder of the enduring harmony that shapes the cosmos. In the quiet expanse of the outer solar system, Saturn's vast disk of water ice particles appears impossibly flat, a tranquil sheet of dust and frost stretching hundreds of thousands of kilometers across while spanning only a few meters in thickness. For centuries, Earthbound observers viewed this pale ring system as a motionless ribbon of light, unaware of the subtle vertical structures and delicate gravitational tides humming softly within its frozen interior. Yet this smooth plane is far from static. It breathes with gentle waves, carved by tiny shepherd moons, drifting silently through empty gaps. During Saturn's equinox in August 2009, when sunlight struck the ring plane edge-on, NASA's Cassini spacecraft captured slender shadows, revealing vertical icy ridges towering 2.5 kilometers high along the Keeler Gap, raised by the gentle gravitational pulse of the tiny moon Daphnis as it orbits every 14 hours. In those rare moments of edge-on illumination, the unique geometry of grazing sunlight transformed what once seemed like a featureless, paper-thin sheet into a subtle landscape of towering peaks and long, reaching shadows. As Daphnis glides along its narrow lane, its faint gravitational field draws surrounding ice particles slightly above and below the main orbital plane, casting soft, dark tendrils across the gleaming frost before the particles gradually settle back into their quiet, concentric paths. Beyond the Keeler Gap, toward the distant, serene reaches of the main ring system, an even slower gravitational choreography unfolds across longer spans of cosmic time. Here, the broad, shimmering expanse of the outer A ring responds to the quiet dance of two small companion moons, sharing virtually the same orbital distance around the ringed giant. Every 4 years, Saturn's co-orbital moons Janus and Epimetheus softly exchange orbital paths by a distance of just 50 kilometers, sending subtle, long wavelength density waves propagating across the outer edge of Saturn's A ring over several quiet months. As the faster inner moon gradually approaches its outer partner from behind. Their faint mutual attraction performs a delicate orbital trade. The inner moon is gently nudged into a slightly higher, slower orbit, while the outer moon slows into a lower, faster path, allowing them to gracefully trade positions without ever drawing close enough to collide. This soft interchange exerts a faint, periodic disturbance upon the surrounding disk of ice, creating broad density waves that move lazily outward across thousands of kilometers of space. These long, rhythmic swells travel across the frozen sheets over many months, compressing and relaxing the density of the ice particles like gentle breathing across a wide, silent sea. Millions of individual ice grains, ranging from microscopic flecks of frost to boulder-sized blocks, move in collective alignment, endlessly guided by the subtle tugs of tiny satellites and the slow passage of orbital cycles. In the deep, undisturbed cold of space, far removed from the turbulent activity of the inner solar system, these unseen waves and temporary ridges mark the passage of time with steady, serene grace, carrying on their silent, timeless drift through the cosmic dark. Far out in the quiet expanse surrounding Saturn, beyond the main glowing bands of frozen particulate, lies a world of slow rhythms and subtle influences. Here, the darkness of space is soft, bathed in the pale glow of distant cloud decks and vast amber rings. Among these quiet outskirts floats the thin, thread-like strand of the F ring, a narrow band composed of trillions of tiny particles of water ice and fine dust. The ring seems almost weightless, hovering silently in the void as it traces its path around the gas giant. There is no turbulence here, only the steady, predictable pull of orbital paths unchanged over uncounted ages. This distant realm rests in profound stillness, where time slows down to match the silent rotations of the planet below. In this serene isolation, small, unseen forces gently shape the ring's delicate borders with infinite patience and quiet poise. Floating along an orbit just inward of this thin ring is Prometheus, a small and oddly shaped moon whose lumpy form glides effortlessly through the darkness. Its pale, battered surface reflects the distant sun in soft, muted tones as it journeys continuously around Saturn. As it travels, its orbit brings it into a gentle, repeating dance with the neighboring ring material, approaching close enough for its slight gravity to touch the loose particles of ice. Every 14.7 hours, Saturn's potato-shaped moon, Prometheus, reaches its closest point to the delicate F ring, using faint gravity to pull a long ribbon of icy dust outward and leave behind a dark, crescent-shaped channel that slowly drifts and smooths out over weeks. This soft, gravitational touch acts like a delicate finger, trailing through a stream of fine silt, drawing out long tendrils of ice before letting them settle once more into the surrounding cosmic mist. The interaction is so soft and gradual that it produces no sudden shock, only a graceful displacement of floating dust that sways in harmony with the passing moon. The resulting channels and ribbons do not disappear instantly. Rather, they linger in the quiet void, slowly drifting along the ring's arc as time passes. Over days and weeks, subtle interactions between millions of tiny ice grains gently erase the crescent-shaped scars. The particles gradually redistribute their collective momentum through soft collisions, smoothing over the dark gaps until the F ring returns to its soft, continuous line. There is a soothing constancy to this endless cycle of disruption and healing, repeating every few hours without noise or agitation. Across thousands of orbits, Prometheus continues its serene sculpture, a reminder of the quiet, orderly mechanics that govern even the most delicate structures in our solar system. One can imagine watching this eternal choreography from afar, an endless series of gentle perturbations and quiet restorations unfolding in total silence. The shepherd moon glides onward, bound by gravity to its solitary course, while the F ring continues to glow faintly against the blackness of space. Each ribbon of dust pulled into the void eventually finds its place again, restoring balance to the band. In this slow mechanics of space, where hours turn into weeks and orbits blend into centuries, every movement is part of a calm, rhythmic lullaby that has played for eons and will continue long into the future. Beyond the main, bright ribbons of Saturn's inner rings lies a subtle realm of soft luminescence, where material is spread so thin that it appears as a faint, ethereal haze floating peacefully against the blackness of deep space. Here, in the far reaches of the giant planet's gravitational domain, the ring system does not consist of dense boulders or colliding sheets of stone, but of tiny, microscopic particles suspended in a state of quiet cosmic balance. For many decades, astronomers wondered how such extremely delicate, wide-reaching structures could persist over long astronomical periods without dissipating into the surrounding void. A ring composed of fine dust or delicate ice crystals naturally disperses over immense spans of time. As solar radiation pressure and magnetic forces gradually pull its component particles away from one another. Yet, across the silent gulfs of space, these outer bands remain steadfast, perpetually sustained by subtle mechanisms hidden within the quiet orbits of attending moons. Watching this vast expanse, one begins to appreciate that planetary rings are not static monuments carved permanently in stone, but gentle, breathing arrangements of matter, continuously renewed by the subtle workings of the celestial bodies nestled within them. Deep within this diffuse outer region orbits the small, snow-white moon known as Enceladus, a world covered in an almost unbroken shell of brilliant water ice. Beneath its cold and reflective surface lies a global liquid ocean, kept warm by the steady, rhythmic tidal flexing imparted by Saturn's powerful gravitational field at the moon's southern polar region. Long fractures carved deep into the icy crust allow this hidden subterranean reservoir to communicate directly with the silent vacuum of space. Instruments aboard visiting spacecraft detected delicate fountains reaching far into the void, releasing pristine water vapor and tiny ice grains into the surrounding realm. In March 2006, data from NASA's Cassini spacecraft confirmed that icy plumes at the south pole of Enceladus continuously eject microscopic ice crystals, slowly replenishing Saturn's vast 1 million kilometer wide E-ring as particles drift peacefully outward over thousands of years. This serene discovery revealed an intimate connection between the subterranean ocean of a tiny moon and the grand architecture of a ring system spanning immense distances, showing how even modest celestial bodies actively shape the peaceful cosmic environment around them. As these tiny frozen fragments escape the moon's gentle gravitational pull, they enter into independent orbits around Saturn, gradually spreading out into a broad, soft halo that glows faintly in the pale, distant sunlight. Each individual ice crystal travels along its own slow, peaceful trajectory, floating through the darkness with unhurried grace for centuries before interacting with another particle. Over thousands of years, the collective motion of countless trillions of these microscopic grains maintains the ring's steady presence, quietly replacing what is lost to the planet's upper atmosphere or the vastness of interstellar space beyond. There is a deep, soothing tranquility to this perpetual cycle, a quiet rhythm where hidden ocean geysers continuously feed a glowing veil of ice that stretches across hundreds of thousands of miles. It is a process that operates far beyond the brief pace of human time, inviting a sense of stillness as we observe the silent, ongoing mechanics that sculpt the solar system in complete peace. Beyond the luminous main rings that catch the pale yellow glow of Saturn, the space surrounding the gas giant does not end in sudden emptiness, but stretches outward into a dark, immense calm. Out here, far past the main icy bands, the gravitational sphere of influence holds sway over distant moons that drift in long, solitary orbits. The sunlight at this distance is gentle and thin, casting a quiet twilight across the vast voids between worlds. In this peaceful fringe of the Saturnian system, small icy bodies encounter micrometeoroids over eons, slowly chipping away tiny flecks of dust into the void. These minute grains, dispersed across millions of leagues, form structures so tenuous that they remain nearly invisible, blending seamlessly with the dark expanse of space. Yet, even in these quiet reaches, matter continues its slow, majestic dance, governed by the subtle interplay of gravity, light, and time. To contemplate this outer expanse is to enter a realm where dynamic change happens on timescales far beyond human perception, where quiet movements unfold with absolute patience across the silent cosmic dark. For centuries, observers saw only the bright inner rings, unaware of the immense structure enveloping the entire system far beyond the reach of visible light. It was only by tuning our vision to the soft warmth radiated by distant dust that the true scale of this cosmic sanctuary became clear. In October 2009, observations from NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope revealed Saturn's vast Phoebe ring, an ultra-sparse cloud of microscopic water ice, dust, spanning 12 million kilometers, that quietly absorbs faint solar warmth, while its particles slowly spiral inward over millions of years. This colossal ring, named after the distant, irregular moon Phoebe that supplies its dust, dwarfs the bright main rings in physical volume, extending across millions of kilometers of space. The individual dust grains are spaced so far apart that space within the ring feels empty. Yet collectively, they constitute a grand structure resting peacefully around Saturn. As faint solar light impinges upon these tiny grains, it gently warms them by just a few degrees, re-radiating thermal energy into the dark expanse. Over immense spans of time, the subtle pressure of sunlight and thermal re-radiation alters their orbits, causing them to migrate slowly toward the inner planet in an unending, silent drift. This gradual inward migration represents a perpetual, quiet circulation within the outer Saturnian system, where dust born from collision travels across millions of kilometers to eventually reach the inner moons. As the particles drift inward over eons, some collide softly with the dark leading hemisphere of Iapetus, coating that moon in a subtle layer of dark dust and sculpting its famous two-toned surface over geologic ages. There is a deep, soothing rhythm to this planetary process, a reminder that even the vastest structures in the cosmos are linked by gentle, continuous flows. Nothing in this distant realm is hurried or chaotic. Every dust grain follows its designated path with unwavering precision, moved by forces so subtle they resemble a quiet breath across the abyss. Considering these distant mechanics, we can take comfort in the steady motion of the cosmos, where vast clouds of ice dust float silently through the dark, resting in the quiet embrace of gravity. As we drift across the grand scale of the outer solar system, time seems to unfold at a different, more patient pace, allowing the mind to rest upon the silent majesty of deep space. High above the swirling upper atmosphere of Saturn, the immense disk of ice particles suspended in space creates a quiet, shifting geometry against the pale golden cloud tops far below, forming a serene canvas of light and shadow. For nearly 3 decades, the distant sun traces its slow, steady path across the giant planet sky, casting a long, slender shadow that moves with deliberate grace across the vast expanse. During Saturn's 29.5-year solar orbit, the vast shadow cast by its dense main rings lowers the temperature of the underlying cloud tops by nearly 30 degrees Celsius, generating slow, planet-wide atmospheric thermal currents that sweep peacefully along its equatorial bands. This subtle, lingering cooling effect creates gentle, rolling breezes in the deep atmosphere, continuous currents of gas, drifting in silent, rhythmic harmony with the moving shade above. There is a profound, tranquil stillness to this planetary exchange, where the cool shadow of orbiting ice shapes the quiet currents of the atmosphere beneath, blending thermal gradients into an endless, peaceful cycle of planetary circulation that glides across thousands of miles without a sound. Beyond the gentle motion of the upper atmosphere, the rings themselves tell a quiet story of cosmic time that is far more fleeting than human observers once imagined. For centuries, astronomers gazing through early telescopes viewed these brilliant, glowing bands of light as eternal, unchanging features of the night sky, fixed monuments of pure ice circling forever in the cold void. Yet space is not entirely empty. A faint, steady rain of microscopic dark particles drifts continuously through the solar system, softly brushing against the frozen rings over countless millions of orbits like a delicate cosmic snowfall. During its final orbits in September 2017, NASA's Cassini spacecraft used its cosmic dust analyzer to measure incoming micrometeoroids, revealing that Saturn's brilliant ice rings are gradually polluted by dark space dust and are surprisingly young, having formed just 10 to 100 million years ago. This gentle revelation transforms our perspective of the majestic ring system, offering a comforting reminder of the dynamic, ever-changing nature of the cosmos. When ancient life flourished in Earth's primeval oceans, or during the quiet rise of early terrestrial mammals, these glittering bands of pristine water ice may not have existed at all, or were only just beginning to coalesce from a shattered icy moon or comet captured by Saturn's immense gravitational pull. Over vast stretches of deep time, the steady influx of dark interplanetary dust will slowly mantle the reflective icy facets, softening their brilliant gleam over hundreds of millions of years to come. But in this present moment, we are fortunate to witness them during their luminous youth, a temporary and breathtaking epoch of pristine brightness, suspended in the quiet darkness of space. As the golden planet turns slowly through its long night, the subtle mechanics of shadow, dust, and ice continue their serene, timeless dance across the darkness, inviting us to release the day and settle into the slow, restful rhythm of an ever-evolving universe. Far beyond the radiant ice bands of Saturn lies the darker, quieter ring system of colossal Jupiter, where faint ribbons of dust trace ancient paths through the shadowed void. Unlike the brilliant sheets of reflective ice that draw the eyes of distant stargazers, these delicate structures are dim, composed of fine grains swept up into a quiet rhythm by forces far subtler than simple gravitational attraction. In this vast realm where shadow dominates, and the distant sun appears as a small, brilliant jewel in the cold sky, space is never entirely empty or dormant. Instead, an invisible interplay of light, magnetic fields, and gentle movement shapes the geometry of dust across immense stretches of silence. Here, time moves at a pace measured not in hours or days, but in the long, unhurried arcs of centuries, offering a tranquil portrait of orbital mechanics operating at its softest and most quiet scale. To understand how these ring structures endure, one must look closely at the invisible forces acting upon the smallest particles of matter. Around any giant planet, gravity exerts a relentless downward pull, striving to collapse all surrounding material into a tight, flattened plane. Yet, around Jupiter, where the magnetosphere stretches out for millions of kilometers in an intricate ballet of energy, another gentle mechanism comes into play. Dust grains, continuously carved from tiny inner moons by micrometeorite impacts, float within this magnetic expanse like speckles of sea spray lingering in a calm harbor. They do not merely orbit in passive submission to gravity. Rather, they are touched by the softest illumination from above, setting in motion a slow physical transformation that expands the ring beyond its expected boundaries. Deep within this dim environment, in Jupiter's innermost halo ring, microscopic dust grains acquire a gentle electric charge from solar photons, allowing the planet's strong magnetic field to float them into a soft, 20,000 kilometer thick cloud that slowly drifts inward over centuries. This electrification is so subtle that a single grain absorbs only a minimal amount of energy. Yet across trillions of tiny particles, the cumulative effect is breathtaking in its quiet majesty. Lifted out of their original equatorial orbits, the grains form a thick, puffed-up torus of dust hovering around the planet's waist. There is no sudden fall, no violent collision, only an imperceptible, continuous journey toward the upper atmosphere, guided by invisible lines of magnetic force that gently cradle each individual speck. Watching such a process unfold, if one could rest quietly in the dark for generations, yields a profound sense of stillness, balance, and patience. The inward drift is so gradual that the cloud appears completely frozen in time, a vast and soothing cushion of dust resting in perpetual balance. Each microscopic particle floats, suspended, held by magnetic currents, even as gravity whispers its persistent invitation toward the gas giant below. As older grains slowly drift inward to be absorbed, new dust is quietly supplied by the distant, silent collisions taking place on small inner moons, maintaining this delicate cloud in a state of eternal, serene equilibrium. The halo ring remains a quiet testament to the soft mechanics of the universe, where light and magnetism gather tiny dust grains into a peaceful, floating veil that sleeps around the giant world. Beyond the glowing brilliance of Saturn's ice-laden ribbons, the solar system hides far more subtle structures, woven from microscopic specks of celestial dust. Around Jupiter, the majestic giant of gas and cloud, a delicate ring system rests in near obscurity, hovering silently in the shadows as fine grains are continuously shed by small inner moons during ancient, silent meteoroid impacts, unlike the brilliant reflectors of icy fragments found around other worlds. These dark particles drift quietly through space, caught between gravity's patient pull and the gentle nudging of photon streams from the sun. The space they inhabit feels wide and quiet, a realm of low-density shadows where change occurs over timescales that stretch long past human perception. Here, sunlight does not ignite brilliant reflections. Instead, it acts as a whisper, striking tiny surfaces and imparting a soft, infinitesimal pressure. Over thousands of orbits, these subtle influences gather into a slow, continuous migration, nudging the dust from its birthplaces near small, forgotten satellites into a quiet, graceful descent across the dark expanse. This deliberate movement was revealed when human instruments ventured closer to observe the faint structures directly. In 1997, measurements from the Galileo spacecraft's imaging system showed that subtle solar radiation pressure and drag softly siphon microscopic particles from Jupiter's main ring, causing dust grains to drift inward toward the planet's upper atmosphere at a peaceful rate of less than 1 meter per day. This microscopic journey is so unhurried that a single tiny grain of dust may spend centuries slowly descending through the vast, silent spatial gap between its birthplace and the outer edges of the giant planet's swirling cloud tops. Every gentle photon collision imparts the tiny force needed to alter an orbit by fractions of a millimeter per turn, creating a smooth spiral path that gradually tightens around the planet. As drag from faint electromagnetic fields and sparse ambient plasma adds to the sun's soft pressure, the grains move inward without turmoil or collision. They glide across space in perfect order, filling the inner emptiness with a ghost-like veil of dust that is constantly being lost at its inner edge and quietly replenished at its outer boundaries. To imagine this process is to rest in the rhythm of deep cosmic patience. In our earthly world, movement often implies speed and change, yet across the outer solar system, nature works with a quiet, boundless leisure. The ring around Jupiter is not a static object frozen in time, but a continuous stream in ultra-slow motion, where the loss of every microscopic grain is softly offset by the quiet crumbling of tiny moonlets under sporadic cosmic impacts. The steady loss of dust toward Jupiter's upper atmosphere is not a violent collapse, but a calm, endless transfer of material, echoing the gentle fall of leaves in late autumn or the slow settling of dust in a quiet, dark room. Each microscopic grain moves with silent dignity, taking step after quiet step through the dark void, drifting less than the length of a single human stride over the course of an entire 24-hour day. In this vast, dark expanse, motion becomes nearly indistinguishable from rest, offering a tranquil reminder of the quiet, enduring, and peaceful mechanisms that shape the universe across endless nights. As the grand celestial clockwork moves silently through the deep dark, cosmic dust and fine ice follow patient trajectories shaped by invisible forces. Far beyond the bright, prominent bands of Saturn, the giant worlds of our solar system harbor subtle and elusive ring structures that drift like quiet whispers against the black backdrop of space. These delicate bands of matter do not shine with brilliant luster. Instead, they exist in a state of soft, perpetual motion, guided by the gentlest nudges of gravity and magnetism over immensities of time. Observing these faint cosmic ribbons unfold reveals a solar system operating at an unhurried cadence, where tiny grains of dust float in calm composure through the vast, cold stillness of the night. Here in the remote silence of space, distant planetary bodies maintain quiet cosmic oceans of particles, each floating along its assigned path with peaceful regularity. Every individual grain moves in harmony with the invisible fields surrounding it, creating expansive structures that seem to rest suspended in timeless serenity. In the quiet environment surrounding Jupiter, far outside the primary ring system, a delicate haze of microscopic particles floats in a high, gentle orbit. Data collected by the Galileo spacecraft during its close flyby in November 2002 showed that Jupiter's faint Tebe-Gossamer ring is formed by microscopic dust particles gently ejected from the moon Tebe, which align into a smooth, 10,000 kilometer thick cylinder governed by the planet's tilted magnetic field lines. Unlike the razor-thin rings seen around other gas giants, this veil of fine dust swells into a soft, spacious cylinder that cradles the orbit of its parent moon. As microscopic impacts dislodge tiny fragments from Tebe's surface, the planet's powerful magnetic field catches the charged grains, lifting them slowly above and below the main orbital sheet. The tilted magnetic field sweeps through space with every rotation of Jupiter, coaxing the floating dust into a broad, symmetrical shape that glows with quiet subtlety. There is no turbulence in this motion, only an endless, soothing drift of dust motes moving together through the deep shadow of the Jovian system. Farther out in the tranquil cold, where Uranus orbits on its side, shadowy bands of dark material remain perfectly arranged like subtle threads wrapped around an obsidian sphere. Discovered during a stellar occultation observed aboard the Kuiper Airborne Observatory in March 1977, Uranus's charcoal dark epsilon ring is held in a slender ribbon by two small shepherd moons, Cordelia and Ophelia, whose gravitational pulses balance the ring's width every 8 hours. These small moonlets travel in companionable orbits just inside and outside the dark ribbon, acting as gentle celestial guardians. With every 8-hour passage, Cordelia accelerates inner particles that fall too close, pushing them back outward, while Ophelia slows the outer particles that drift too far away, pulling them back inward. This rhythmic, silent tug-of-war prevents the ring from spreading into the surrounding void, keeping its edges sharp and well-defined. Through this quiet gravitational choreography, the charcoal ring preserves its neat form across millions of miles of empty space. Floating together in the calm velvet darkness of the outer solar system, planet, shepherd moons, and dark ring particles continue their slow, synchronized journey through time, resting in the everlasting, peaceful balance of deep space. Far beyond the sunlit realms of the inner planets, where sunlight thins to a soft, silver whisper, the giant ice worlds circle in silent solitude. Out here, millions of miles away from the warm hearth of the sun, ring systems do not always display the brilliant, crowded ribbons seen around Saturn. Instead, they often take the form of delicate, nearly invisible gossamer threads, suspended in the cool expanse of space like breath caught in midnight air. In these vast and quiet reaches, time seems to slow to a motionless crawl. The particles that compose these distant rings move with an unfathomable patience, tracing wide, orderly paths around their parent worlds. There is no haste in their orbital journey, only a perpetual, balanced drift through the shadowed calm. Each tiny grain of dust and shard of ice responds to the gentlest pull of gravity, keeping time with cosmic rhythms established long ago. As we turn our quiet gaze toward the pale, tilted sphere of Uranus, we find a world surrounded by subtle bands and hidden outer archways, holding secrets revealed only when our most sensitive eyes looked deep into the dark. In the quiet darkness of the outer solar system, details emerge only when we observe with immense patience and care. Observations by the Hubble Space Telescope in December 2005 revealed Uranus's outer mu ring, which glows with a subtle blue hue as solar radiation pressure softly filters out larger particles to leave behind only microscopic water-ice dust shed by the moon map. This tiny moon, barely a handful of miles across, wanders through its orbit while softly yielding fragments of pure frozen moisture into space. As these icy specks drift away from MAB's faint gravitational hold, the subtle pressure of sunlight acts like a silent breeze, sifting through the debris over immense spans of time. The larger particles are gradually pushed aside, while only the finest, microscopic dust grains remain suspended in place. Because these tiny particles scatter sunlight in much the same way that molecules in Earth's sky scatter the morning sun, they impart a faint, tranquil blue light to the surrounding ring. It is a peaceful phenomenon where light itself acts as a delicate sculptor, separating the heavy from the light until only an azure mist remains. This quiet sorting process speaks to the gentle, patient mechanics that govern the cosmos on its grandest scales. There are no sudden disruptions in this distant zone. Instead, there is only a slow, continuous refinement that unfolds across millions of orbits. The small moon mab continues its solitary journey along the ring path, forever tending to the delicate azure stream it leaves in its wake. Each microscopic speck of ice floats in perfect harmony with its neighbors, reflecting the distant, pale light of the sun with a soft and soothing glow. Around the cold sphere of Uranus, the Mu ring rests like a quiet breath, a shimmering halo of microscopic frost suspended in eternal silence. As we contemplate this faint blue ring drifting peacefully through space, the mind easily settles into its tranquil cadence. The universe moves not with force, but with a lingering, steady grace, holding all things in balance. We can close our eyes and drift alongside those distant particles of ice, cradled by the calm, slow mechanics of the outer darkness, suspended in a serene and timeless sleep. Far out in the deep blue quiet of the outer solar system, where sunlight fades to a pale and gentle point, the ice giant Neptune sweeps through its long, slow orbit. Here, billions of miles away from the warmth of the inner planets, the celestial environment feels almost completely timeless, suspended in an unhurried, peaceful drift. Soft ribbons of dark ice and microscopic dust encircle the world in delicate, near-invisible rings, tracing smooth paths through space with absolute composure and quiet elegance, unlike the wide, brilliant bands that wrap around Saturn. Neptune's rings are faint and subtle, lingering silently against the vast, velvety background of dark space. Yet, within this tranquil darkness, subtle celestial mechanics are continuously at work, maintaining order across immense distances through small, rhythmic gravitational interactions. The deep quietude of these far regions invites a calm and soothing contemplation, where the passage of time is measured not by hours or days, but by the steady, graceful turns of tiny icy fragments drifting in perpetual peace around their distant, shadow-draped world. In the late summer of 1989, humanity's quiet robotic sentinel journeyed through this pale blue twilight to glimpse the hidden structures encircling Neptune. When Voyager 2 flew past Neptune in August 1989, it captured images of 5 dense, luminous dust arcs clustered within the thin atom's ring, named Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, Courage, and Echo, held in stable gravitational alignment by the subtle orbital heartbeat of the nearby moon Galatea. These bright segments, floating like glowing threads within the otherwise diffuse ring band, seemed at first to defy the simple expectation that dust particles should eventually disperse along their orbital path over time. Instead, the gentle gravitational pulse of Galatea acts like a quiet, invisible shepherd, creating faint pockets of orbital stability where fine dust grains gather and remain safely nested. With every complete circuit, the small moon nudges the particles just enough to prevent them from spreading out or drifting away into the surrounding void. demonstrating how a tiny celestial body can maintain perfect harmony across a sprawling structure through soft, repeating resonance. This quiet interplay between moon and ring arc reveals a profound sense of balance in the outer solar system, where even the softest orbital nudges sustain delicate patterns across centuries. As Galatea completes its silent circuit again and again, its gravitational rhythm flows through the atom's ring like a steady, peaceful breath, ensuring that the 5 dusty arcs retain their luminous presence against the cold, quiet backdrop of space. The dust grains themselves, tiny specks of frozen material drifting along patient curves, move together with an unhurried, majestic cadence that seems to quiet the mind and invite deep rest. Floating in the absolute silence of this distant realm, they reflect the dim, distant solar light with a soft, peaceful glow that never fades. Nothing moves quickly here, and nothing is ever in haste. The mechanics of these planetary rings proceed with a tranquil certainty, guiding every particle along its silent journey around Neptune, and offering a serene portrait of eternal order, stillness, and repose across the tranquil void. Out beyond the familiar majestic orbits of Jupiter and Saturn, where starlight weakens into a pale, silvery glow, the cold expanse of the outer solar system stretches in quiet tranquility. Here, far past the warmth of the inner terrestrial worlds, small icy bodies trace long, patient paths through the deep void. For centuries, astronomers believed that the splendid architecture of planetary rings belonged only to the giant worlds, vast gas giants with colossal gravitational reaches capable of holding billions of sparkling icy fragments in permanent disk shapes. Yet space is full of quiet surprises that reveal themselves only when we observe with utmost patience. One of the most subtle methods for exploring these remote depths relies on watching distant stars as solar system objects drift across them. During such stellar occultations, the faint background star acts as a cosmic backlight, momentarily dimming as the solid body passes in front, revealing subtle structures, thin atmospheres, or tiny companions that would otherwise remain hidden in the dark. It was during one such serene night of skywatching across South America in March 2013 that astronomers pointed their telescopes toward 10,199 Chariklo, a modest centaur drifting more than 2 billion kilometers from the sun, as they recorded the light of a distant star, expecting only a single simple dip. As the small icy body blocked the starlight, they observed unexpected symmetrical blinks just before and after the main body crossed the line of sight. These brief, delicate flickers revealed that Chariklo was not alone in its silent wanderings. During a stellar occultation observed across South America in March 2013, astronomers discovered 2 crisp, narrow rings of frozen dust, just 3 and 7 kilometers wide, silently orbiting the tiny Centaur 10,199 Chariklo, more than 2 billion kilometers from the Sun. The discovery reshaped our understanding of celestial mechanics, demonstrating that ring systems do not require immense planetary mass to form and endure. The existence of these two narrow ribbons of ice particles around a body, only 250 kilometers across, evokes a sense of quiet wonder. In the bitter cold of deep space, where sunlight is little more than a brilliant needle of light, tiny grains of water ice and dark carbonaceous dust orbit Chariklo in exquisite harmony. The inner ring, spanning 7 kilometers across, and its even thinner companion of 3 kilometers, separated by a clear, dark gap, trace perfectly circular paths around their small parent body. Scientists believe these rings may be sustained by tiny shepherd moonlets drifting invisibly between or beside them, using their minuscule gravity to herd stray particles back into place and prevent the rings from slowly dispersing into the void. As Chariklo glides through its long orbit between Saturn and Uranus, its tiny twin rings turn silently in the vast dark, reflecting a soft, faint shimmer of distant starlight. They drift through space like miniature cosmic jewelry, maintaining their precise boundaries over thousands of years through the steady, unhurried laws of orbital motion. Listening to the quiet rhythm of the universe, one realizes that order and beauty find expression at every scale, from the grand halos of giant planets to the delicate, frozen rings encircling a tiny Centaur in the dark outer reaches of the solar system. Far beyond the majestic giant planets, in the dimly lit cold of the outer solar system, the architecture of ring systems takes on unexpected and restful forms. Here, among the scattered icy bodies of the Kuiper Belt, worlds drift in quiet solitude, bound by the slow, persistent laws of gravity. In this quiet dimness, each particle moves along a predictable trajectory, held in place by the gentle pull of its parent world. For generations, planetary rings were thought to be the exclusive adornment of immense gas worlds like Saturn and Neptune. Yet as our telescopes have turned toward the smallest, most distant realms, we have discovered that even tiny, frozen dwarf planets can weave thin ribbons of dust and ice around themselves. These delicate structures remind us that orbital mechanics operate seamlessly on every scale, gently guiding particles into peaceful paths across millions of miles of dark space, far removed from the bright warmth of our sun. One such subtle discovery unfolded when astronomers watched a distant, twinkling star quietly pass behind a remote dwarf planet. During a multi-telescope stellar occultation observed across Europe on January 21, 2017, astronomers discovered a dark, 70-kilometer wide ring orbiting the egg-shaped dwarf planet Haumea at a distance of 2,287 kilometers, completing a silent rotation every 34 hours. The unusual, elongated shape of Haumea, tumbling rapidly through the gloom, creates a complex gravitational landscape. Yet, its surrounding ring remains remarkably stable and serene. Each icy particle within the band follows its own solitary path around the oblong world, taking slightly more than a day to trace a complete loop. This quiet harmony between a strangely shaped body and its surrounding debris demonstrates how naturally ring systems form and endure, maintaining their subtle balance across vast spans of cosmic time. Even further into the peaceful dark, another small world challenged our understanding of how distant ring systems persist. In February 2023, astronomers using the high PERCAM instrument on the Gran Telescopio Canarias discovered a faint ring around the distant dwarf planet 50,000 Quaoar orbiting at 4,100 kilometers, more than 7 planetary radii out, far beyond the theoretical Roche limit, where icy particles were previously thought to coalesce into a moon. Classical astronomy held that beyond the Roche limit, tidal forces would no longer be strong enough to prevent small icy grains from gathering together into a solid satellite. Yet Quaoar's distant ring persists in calm defiance of that traditional expectation, remaining a fine, dispersed band rather than accreting into a companion moon. The subtle mechanisms keeping these cold particles apart suggest that orbital resonances or low-velocity collisions allow rings to endure much farther from their host bodies than once imagined. As we observe these delicate bands of ice circling small worlds in the profound quiet of deep space, we find a reassuring sense of order and peace. From the swift, egg-shaped spin of Haumea to the lonely, distant circuit of Quaoar's ring, gravity quietly balances dispersion and gathering in equal measure. Countless tiny particles drift in perpetual, silent orbits, completely untroubled by time or distance. In these remote outer reaches, where daylight is little more than the soft glint of a prominent star, the slow mechanics of planetary rings continue their timeless rhythm, inviting us to rest in the quiet expanse of the cosmos. As our journey through the quiet mechanics of celestial arches draws to its peaceful conclusion, we rest our gaze once more upon the luminous halo of Saturn. Here, far beyond the turbulent activity of the inner solar system, motion unfolds across timescales so vast that movement itself feels indistinguishable from absolute stillness. Billions of icy fragments, ranging from fine, glittering grains of frosted dust to house-sized boulders of ancient primeval ice, orbit together in a smooth and delicate dance that has endured for tens of millions of years. Each particle carries within its frozen shell the quiet memory of early planetary creation, floating gently through the broad, shadowed realm of the gas giant, sustained by the invisible, balanced forces of gravity and orbital resonance. In the deep expanse of space surrounding these rings, there is a profound and comforting silence, a slow and rhythmic breathing of light and gravity that invites the mind to set aside all waking cares and settle into undisturbed rest. For many generations, astronomical observers viewed these majestic rings as permanent fixtures, frozen ribbons of silver carved permanently against the velvet darkness of night. Yet modern science, peering upward through the crisp, clear atmosphere of Earth, has revealed that this majestic structure is subtly and patiently evolving high atop the dormant volcanic summit of Mauna Kea. Measurements gathered at Hawaii's Encke Observatory confirmed that Saturn's magnetic field lines silently pull upon its ring particles, draining an Olympic swimming pool's volume of microscopic, charged ice crystals as a gentle ring rain into the planet's upper clouds every 30 minutes. Softly guided by electromagnetic forces, these minute specks of water ice descend in an imperceptible, continuous curtain, falling silently through the upper reaches of the atmosphere to slowly dissolve into the planet's quiet, distant cloud layers. It is a slow, elegant decay occurring drop by microscopic drop across millions of years, a gentle exchange between ring and world. This gradual sifting of ring material does not diminish the serene beauty of Saturn, but rather enhances its sense of tranquil harmony. The gentle descent of the ring rain proceeds at a pace far slower than the rhythm of human breathing, offering a quiet reminder that even the grandest structures in our solar system participate in a continuous, peaceful passage of time. As magnetic pathways gently draw the charged ice inward, the main ring system maintains its timeless grace, glowing with a soft, ethereal luster against the deep void. The universe moves without tension or hurry, governed by fundamental physical laws, where every force finds its perfect balance, and every moving particle eventually finds its place of quiet rest. Now, as the distant, gleaming bands of Saturn slowly soften into the peaceful background of space, we let go of analysis and measurement, allowing the tranquil expanse of the cosmos to cradle our thoughts. The faint, falling mist of ice continues its endless, silent descent through the calm dark, untroubled and undisturbed. Below, the great ringed world turns softly in its slow, eternal orbit, wrapped in serene stillness. May the steady, quiet mechanics of these distant planetary rings bring a deep sense of stillness and peace to your evening. Sleep now, resting securely in the cool, silent drift of the cosmos, as the universe continues its quiet, timeless lullaby in the restful dark.